Y ya, entonces no
Pero
dije nada.
partamos desde acá, da lo mismo, da lo mismo. Clase del grupo 3, 3 o no. Oh, ¿cómo sé eso? Voy a tener que entrar al campus. Espérenme. Campus UMCE.
Sí, profe, es la 3.
Grupo
Como
3.
sección.
Ustedes son la sección 3, ¿cierto? Sí, déjame solo corroborar. Sí, sección 3. Clase de la sección 3, Grammar 2, del 30 del 8 del 2021. Digo eso para ordenarme después. Ya. Last term, the last semester, we were discussing verb phrases, and inside of verb phrases, we must analyze, or we had to analyze different types of them. One of those analyses were related to the form of the verb, right? And if you remember, verbs can be finite and non-finite. If they are non-finite, they can be of two types. They can be infinitives or participles, right? Right. If they are infinitive, they can be to infinitive or per infinitive. In this case, we have a to infinitive, to make. How do I know it's a verb? Well, because make is a verb. So to can't be a preposition, right? Right. Then non-finite verbs will create non-finite clauses, right? Because every single time that I see a verb phrase, I'm seeing a clause. Therefore, to make calamitous mistakes is a to infinitive clause. To infinitive clause acting as the freedom to make calamitous mistakes. That's, I can't erase that. Therefore, is a complement. Inside of this clause, I have the verb phrase, verb to make, verb head, and next to that, to make what? Calamitous mistakes, right? Calamitous mistakes is a noun phrase as it answers the question what, then is an object, indirect or direct, it doesn't matter. When you have just one single object, it's always direct. Therefore, you don't write the OD stuff because it's self-explanatory. Calamitous is clearly an adjective, premodifier, and then mistakes is a noun head. That's it. Any problem? Questions? Comments?
Profe, lo
Dígame.
de los objetos no me quedó tan claro. Sí.
Mira, el tema de los objetos, quiero ser muy claro, muy súper, ultra claro. Los objetos no son parte de nuestro curso, ¿sí? Eso lo van a ver evaluado el próximo curso de gramática. Entonces, ¿por qué hablo de ellos ahora? Porque es la forma de encontrar las frases adentro de una cláusula, ¿ya? Por lo tanto, que coloque indirecto o directo no, nunca va a estar evaluado, ¿ya? Para que sepa, and for your knowledge, an object, okay, first of all, the very first stuff I'm going to say about this is the following, is that clauses are created by some units, right? Right, these units are subject, symbol S, verb, some other grammars, they call it verbal, symbol V, object, O, and if it's direct object, OD, if it's indirect object, OI. The other element is called complement, symbol C. There are two types of them, subject complement, symbol CS, or object complement, symbol CO, and finally adverbial, symbol A. The subject is the doer of the action. The verb, verbal, is the action itself. The object is the receiver of the action. Complements are info about the subject or the complement, and the adverbial is a circumstance, I would say. Right? Right. the doer of the action, we're going to find it by asking who to the verb, right? The receiver of the action, we're going to find it by asking what or to whom. The info, we're going to find it by asking how. And this another one are all basically different types of WH words. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about this. Then clauses are created by following some patterns. You can't, I mean, they are not made at random. They follow certain rules, and these rules, they get name of valency pattern. Right? Therefore, a clause can be written in these ways, like a subject, a verb, a subject, a verb, an object, a subject, a verb, a complement, subject, verb, object, object, subject, verb, object, complement, subject, verb, object, adverbial. And I think that those are all the ways, I think. Okay, so why am I saying this? I'm saying this because as we must analyze phrases and we're going to use clauses for that, the way in which we're going to recognize phrases is because one of every element, one of each of these elements, every single one of these elements are made up by one single phrase, right? Right. Therefore, I can say that the noun phrase is usually a subject and the verb is obviously a verb phrase, that objects are also noun phrases, that complements are usually adjective phrases, and that adverbials are usually prepositional phrases, adverb phrases, or even noun phrases. That's why I'm saying this. Importante, lo digo en español, los valency patterns no son evaluados en este curso. Lo repito, los valency patterns no son evaluados en este curso. Solo los utilizamos como forma de identificación o ayuda a la identificación de las frases de una cláusula. Eso. Any other doubt? ¿Estamos entonces? Sí, avanzamos. Okay. The noun phrase, okay, the indefinitely complex noun phrase, we already saw that. The idea of head and concord, we already saw that. The determinative, predeterminers, we discussed this. The idea of definiteness and indefiniteness, the definite article and the indefinite article, we saw that. Determiners, which ones are definite and indefinite, we saw that. Okay, lists of. ¿Llegamos hasta acá o no? ¿O más allá? No sé si alguien me dice, por
A los central determiners, creo.
Maravilloso. Central determiners. They are in choice relation. This, these, that, those, every, each, no. Therefore, these are the central determiners. Do you remember that we said that every single central determiner then is every single central determiner then is the one we're going to use to state the difference between pre and post determiners. That is to say that every single determiner that is placed before the central determiner is considered to be a predeterminer, quite obvious. And the ones that goes after it, they are post determiners, is also very obvious. Okay, they are in choice relations, central determiners. You must choose one of them. You can't use two of them. You can't say no, the or no A, right? That's impossible. Then we have noun phrase constituents determiners, and here we have different types of them. Okay, you must, or you can read this on your own. I don't think we must review them quite in a profound manner, but we're going just to pass over them. Definite article, I won't say much. Careful, possessive pronouns, they are also determiners, right? My suitcase, my suitcases, my luggage. Relative determiners, whose and which. The lady whose car you hit was furious. Okay, we're going to do that analysis. Crap, crap. Hit. The lady whose car you hit was furious. That's a clause. How do I know that? Because there's a verb phrase in it. Which verb phrase? This one. I can see another phrase, hit, right? But that hit is part of the noun phrase. How do I know that? Because I can replace the entire thing by a pronoun. She was furious, right? With that, I'm proving that lady is the head and it has concord with the verb phrase in terms of number. Lady is the third person singular and the form of the verb is in its S form, I would say, in the third person form. Therefore, the lady whose car you hit is one single thing. How was this lady? Furious. This is another element, right? So this is a noun phrase performing the role of subject. This is a verb phrase performing the role of verb. Furious is an adjective, therefore adjective phrase, and it's characterizing the subject, therefore is a complement, but not any, but a subject complement. Okay. Now, inside of the subject, we have the determinate phrase, pre-modifier, and then we have the noun head, and then I have this, whose car you hit. Whose car you hit is a clause. How do I know that? Because there's a verb. What's the verb, or which is the verb? The word, the lexeme hit, right? So what's whose car you hit? You hit her car. Okay, this is difficult. It's not that easy. Okay, but in this sense, this is a relative clause. The relative clauses, they got some other names. You can find them by the names of identifying clauses and non-identifying clauses. There are some others, call them restrictive versus non-restrictive clauses. And even in some other places, they have the audacity for saying adjectival clauses, right? Right. The lady was furious. The lady, this is a post modifier, and inside of that, we have something quite unique, I would say. Clearly, you hit is the verb phrase, but what's the subject of that sentence? Whose car or you hit? ¿Quién hizo la acción? El
Sí,
you, ¿cierto? Entonces
sí.
aquí hay una construcción que es diferente, porque el noun phrase subject está al medio. Raro eso. Verb phrase verb and whose car. Yo muy rápidamente sé que es una noun phrase, pero no sé cuál es la función. Therefore, Me voy a pegar un carrilazo, hay que revisarlo. Según yo es un objeto. Y esto es un determiner pre-modifier. Hay una cosa que la van a ver en tercero que se llama fronting. Fronting is a displacement or a change, a variation of the way in which we create clauses where you can put the object before the subject. In this way, to provide an example of this, I can say this. An ice cream I ate. In this respect, this clause has an issue. Why? Because the object has been placed at the very beginning, right? Fronting can be understood as Yoda speech. Sí, el viejito verde de Star Wars habla raro, pero habla bien, porque habla haciendo fronting. Creo que eso es lo de Whose Car You Hit. Parecido, es un carril, puede que me equivoque. Why do I use this example? Well, the interesting thing about this example is the fact that we have whose, right? Whose in this place is called possessive determiner, right? Is a possessive determiner. Why? Well, because it goes inside of a noun phrase where there's already a noun head, right? So is modifying in a way the following noun head. In the case of the relative clauses, uh, they the espérame. In the case of a relative clause, the possessive determiner then is the one which introduces the entire unit, right? Relative clauses are a very common, in fact, a very common post modifier, right? And even complements of noun phrases, right? So all over again, as a summary, relative determiners, possessive determiners or relative determiners. Possessive determiners are considered to are very interesting because they are the ones which introduces the relative clause into a noun phrase as a post modifier or as a complement. Then relative determiner whose, number 3, number 4, WH determiners in ever, both for whichever proposal you think most favorable. Again, whichever, as you can see, is a WH determiner, right? Just pretty much like the relative determiner in number 3. Number 5, interrogative determiners. Oh, crap. Interrogative determiners, the ones that goes with questions, right? What color, which information, whose ideas are these? Finally, the negative determinant no. Please be very careful with the negative determinant no in comparison to some other forms that are quite similar. Okay. The negative determiner no, right? Like no, no favors, right? No favors. In comparison to the negative particle. Not. Okay. Be careful with this because No is a determiner, and not is considered a negative particle. Okay, and they look quite similar, but they don't belong to the same family. Okay, then determiners, more determiners, plural, count nouns and non-count nouns, zero article. There were people everywhere. Do you want to play chess? Okay, I I don't agree that much with the idea of the zero article. Some grammars, I mean, most grammars, I would say like 100% of them, they say that or they propose the existence of a zero article, which means that there is an elided determiner. Another term. Omission or elision, which means erased. Grammarians say, grammarians say, or they propose the existence of a zero article, like 100% of them, all of them. They say that there's an article whether it's written or not. Therefore, when there's not, right, they call it an elided determiner. There will be, and as you can see later on, there are several cases in which you will see elided elided elements, right? Like in coordination and even subordination. Okay. I don't agree with that idea, because if there's not, well, I don't agree that much with that idea, but I'm no one, right? On the other hand, the zero article can be understood, or the existence of the zero article can be understood because of the definiteness, right? If you remember last lesson, we were dealing with the idea of definite noun phrases or indefinite noun phrases. And the fact that this definition, definiteness or definite or indefinite, comes from the presence of a definite or indefinite article, right? Definite or indefinite determiner, right? But what happens if I have zero article, right? Um, the very same lesson we read that every single noun phrase, every single noun phrase can be classified into definite or indefinite. Now, the thing is this: as every single noun phrase can be classified in that manner, then what happens if I don't have any determiner? The answer is the zero article. If you use the zero article, then you're using, or you're saying uh, that the noun phrase is definite, right? I'm trying to clear my mind. The zero article then is used so as to classify a noun phrase as definite, right? That's it. That's it. Okay. The assertive determiner some and the non-assertive any. I won't say much about that. I want some roles. Have we got any roles, right? Because in the first one, I want some roles is a declarative sentence. Therefore, there's this sense of there are, I mean, the existence of roles, right? If I say I want some roles, is because I can see those roles. And if I ask using any, then I don't know, right? It can be negative as well, but not in many cases. The quantitative determiner enough, I haven't got enough equipment. Enough is a very difficult word because it can also mean some other stuff. And as you can see, enough can be at least three, or it can belong to at least three different word categories: determiners, pronouns, and adverbs. The very first example: is there enough dessert? Are there enough desserts? Right? In this case, enough dessert is a determiner. How do I know that? Right? I know that because it is in front of or before a noun, right? So sharing the same phrase. So it's a determiner, right? There are 25 textbooks per class. That should be enough. That should be enough. How should it be? Enough. Therefore, is an adverb. Have you had enough? The same idea, adverb. I know enough. I know enough, adverb. He is tall enough, adverb again. I've got enough. I must review the way in which it works as a pronoun because I can't think of any example of it. Noun phrase constituents, determiners. Determiners of singular count nouns and singular non-count nouns, the demonstrative determiners, this and that. Okay, this is easy. I won't say much about this, right? The only thing I'm always remembering or I'm always highlighting is the fact that selective demonstrative determiners, these, these, that, and those, they show or they entail the idea of proximity and distance, but not only in physical terms, but also in psychological terms, and in some cases in time meaning. Noun phrase constituents, determinants of plural count. Okay, it's the very same idea, but in plural. I won't say much. Okay, here we have more of them. Indefinite articles, universal determiners, every and each. Non-assertive, either. Careful with either. We're going to see that later on. The same with neither, right? Okay, here we have a summary. I think this is more comprehensible. In this slide, we have the summary of the way in which determiners work, right? In the sense of countable and uncountable nouns, right? But the one I'm more interested in is this one. This is the way in which a determiner phrase works, right? And as you can see, the central determiners are the definite article the at the very beginning, then selective demonstrative determiners, those and these, then indefinite article a, then here, that's a here possessive determiner. And as you can see, whenever you have, or if you have any determiner in front of that, in front of them, they are considered to be predeterminers, right? All both have twice double. Then post determiners, all the ones that are placed after the central ones, quite obvious, but they can be two. The last two, right? Last two. And if we take a look at it on an example, okay, this is our example. This is a noun phrase. And in our example, then, the last two, really tough, though, escribí though. I see. Really tough years, right? This is a noun phrase, and years is the noun head. But then I have this adjective phrase premodifier with tough as the adjective head and really as the adverb premodifier. And then at the very beginning, I have this determiner phrase acting as a premodifier. And inside of that, I have my central determiner, the post det, last, and the second post that to. Okay. So so the presence of a determinate phrase can be accompanied by the presence of an adjective phrase, right? Right next to it. That's it. ¿Alguna pregunta de lo que hemos hablado o de lo que he leído hasta ahora? ¿No? Entonces, ojo con este slide. Este es el resumen. Avanzamos. Summary of the position of the terminus. Another very good summary. Predeterminate, central, post, and post. The interesting thing is the fact that numbers, they tend to go at the very end, right? Ordinal numbers and cardinal numbers. And in front of them, you have quantifiers. Okay. Pre-modification. Noun phrase constituent. Pre-modification. All over again. Phrases are built around the idea of a head and modifiers. Modifiers, they provide characteristics to the head in the sense of a noun phrase. Then a modifier, a pre-modifier, can be an adjective, right? Nouns, right? Nouns, adjectives. And here we have some examples. Some furniture then is a noun phrase, some is a determiner, and furniture is a noun. No problem. But then we have some expensive furniture, which is another noun phrase. Furniture is a noun, expensive is an adjective, and some is a determiner. Then, third example, some very expensive furniture. Furniture is the noun head, very expensive is an adjective phrase, and some is a determiner. But then we have some very expensive office furniture. Okay, some very expensive office furniture. Then it's noun phrase. And inside of that, some is a determiner. Very expensive is an adjective phrase. Pre-modifier, inside of that, our adverb pre-modifier, and next to that, expensive, which is our adjective. Head. Crap. Our adjective head. And then I have office furniture. And here we have a problem. The problem is this. Is office furniture one single lexeme, or office is one and furniture is the other? What do you think?
I think that there are two different nouns.
Okay.
Office is modifying furniture.
Okay. So so you're saying that this is not any furniture, but it's an office furniture, right?
Exactly.
Okay, good. Okay, what's the problem? The problem is that once you have, or every single time that you will read or you will try to analyze a noun head, and that noun head has a noun in front of that, there will always be this question: is this one single lexeme or not? So the only possible thing you can do is asking yourself: is this the only type of furniture there is, or are there any other? And then think about an example. Can I say, for example, I don't know, bedroom furniture, kitchen furniture, bathroom furniture. If you can say that, then what you're meaning, I mean, what you're implying is the fact that furniture is optional, right? And that you can exchange it by any other noun. In this case, I absolutely agree with our classmate, and I think that this is a noun pre-modifier, and this is a noun here. Okay, so be careful. Then we are in the fourth example, and then I have some very, very expensive office furniture. In this case, some very, very expensive, some very, very expensive. You can see that inside of this adjective phrase, you have two different adverbs pre-modifier. So there's nothing new. Okay. 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 Good. 1523. ¿Alguna duda de lo que he dicho?
No, profe.
¿Todo bien? ¿Todo bien? ¿Estamos seguros que todo bien? ¿Alguien? Oh, creo que era el 3. Sí, era el 3. Ya, 15:24. Vamos a tomar un break de 10 minutos hasta las 15:34. Luego, como usted acaba de ver, we're recording. Okay, so she had a pretty gift for quotation, which is a serviceable substitute for with. She had, right? Had. That's the very first. So had she had what? A pretty gift for quotation, which is a serviceable substitute for with. Is it clear that which is a serviceable substitute for with can't be moved, right? You can't move it because that which links the following idea to quotation, right? So, okay, so a pretty gift for what? For quotation, which is a serviceable substitute for with. Okay, here we have another one. For what? For quotation, which is a serviceable substitute for with. Which is, okay, here we have a clause. That clause is a relative clause providing information about quotation. Then inside of that clause, we need this another verb phrase. And here we have another, oh, that's new, that which is a relative pronoun. And then a serviceable substitute for with, which is what? A serviceable substitute for with. Serviceable substitute for with, right? And with is the other stuff. Okay. So the easiest part. So this is the noun phrase, pronoun head, verb phrase, verb head, no problem. Which is this? She had this, right? Object. Determine a pre-modifier, adjective, gift, for quotation, prepositional phrase, right? Can I erase it? She had a pretty gift for okay, I need for quotation on the rest of the stuff, so otherwise I won't understand what the gift is. So is complement. And then I have this preposition head, and then this noun phrase complement, and then I have this noun head quotation followed by this relative clause. Can I erase which is a serviceable substitute for with? Yeah, I can erase it. Therefore, is a post modifier, which is created by a noun phrase subject. Okay, I need more space. Turururum. Which is a relative pronoun. Pronoun. Head. Why is it a pronoun and not determiner? Basically because it's on its own, right? What does it mean? It means that determiners, they need the presence of a head, right? You can't have a determiner on its own. You need the head next to it. So if I have a relative, either a relative determiner or relative pronoun, then I will state the difference because of the context, right? The syntactic context. In this case, as it is alone, then I would say it's a pronoun, right? And then next to that, I have my verb phrase verb made out of a verb head, and which is this, right? A serviceable substitute for wheat. And that's another noun phrase, acting as something like an object. We don't care about that, but it's a noun phrase. That's the important thing. With the indefinite article, with the adjective, with the noun, and with the prepositional phrase, serviceable substitute for which that's a post modifier. I can erase it, I think. And then I will provide the canonical analysis for this. Noun phrase, come on, help me. Okay, and then this is the noun head, and that's it. ¿Algún problema con la 1?
Profe, no entiendo eso.
¿Qué cosa?
Cuando coloca el relative clause.
La
ahí,
relative clauses,
no,
piénsalo así,
me
mira,
perdí.
es más simple de lo que piensa. Usted lo hace siempre. Tu, 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 tu. Pum. Veamos unos ejercicios. Exercises. Tururum. Perfect English grammar. Whatever. Let's go to the stuff. ¿Dónde están los need? Sí, Alice. Okay. Defining relative clauses. Cerrar. Okay. She worked for a man. The man used to be an athlete. The idea for a relative clause is that inside of a noun phrase, I will have a clause, right? Right. That clause will provide information about the head. Okay? Okay. Now, as the instruction states, add the phrase in brackets to the sentence using that or who and a relative clause. Example, she worked for a man. The man used to be an athlete. Therefore, if I need to add this further information, I will repeat the subject. ¿Se ve cómo escribo, no? ¿Sí?
Sí,
Sí,
sí.
profe.
Worked for a man. ¿Y lo uno con that o con who?
Este caso sería who.
Who, porque hago relación a una persona, ¿cierto?
Ujú.
Who. ¿Y qué hago después del who?
Used to be.
Yes, used to be. Used to be an athlete. ¿Cierto? Cierto. Analicémosla. She worked for a man who used to be an athlete. ¿Cierto? Cierto. Therefore, what I have is this. Worked is my main verb, right? Like the one which is going to create the entire valency pattern. Therefore, it's my verb first verb. She is the doer of the action, noun, phrase, subject. She works for who? For whom? For a man who used to be an athlete. No sé, Soledad, si te das cuenta que la relative clause lo que hace es entregar información acerca de una entidad, obvio, pero no por cualquier parte, sino que esa información que se entrega está adentro de la misma frase. Lo que hago yo acá entonces es tomar este ejercicio que estaría en un curso de language, pero te lo explico desde grammar, desde syntax, ¿cachai? Entonces, ¿qué es lo que pide este ejercicio en verdad? Lo que pide este ejercicio es, yo lo colocaría en la prueba así, add the extra information by using a relative clause post modifier. In the example, then, this stuff is a prepositional phrase, right? Who worked for him, right? And this is my noun phrase complement. For is my preposition head, and this stuff is the noun phrase complement. Inside of it, I have a pre-modifier, man, noun head, and then I have my relative clause. And as you can see, inside of this relative clause, there are more phrases, and one of those phrases is a verb phrase. That's why it's called clause, right? Here we have used to be, because we all know that used to is a semi-modal verb, right? And in front of that, we have the subject. And then we have used to be this, an object, I think. Okay, now the name, in fact, the real name is WH relative clause. Why WH? Because it begins with a WH. And as you can see, she worked for a man who used to be an athlete. I think is a, well, in fact, they are not post modifiers, they are complements. I'm going to write down complement. Oh, come on. Because I can't erase it. And then I have to state all the phrases inside of it, right? Pronoun head, and then used to is a verb phrase verb with an auxiliary verb, used to, and the main verb be, and then the noun phrase, I think it's an object, and is a determiner pre-modifier, and athlete is the noun head. No sé si queda más claro.
Sí, o
Un
sea, el
pelito.
who quedaría como un pronombre.
Sí, porque reemplaza al sujeto.
Mm,
¿Cachai? No hay cláusula sin sujeto. En inglés no existe eso. Solo, o sea, es medio mentira, medio verdad. No existe la cláusula sin sujeto. Chiquillos, nos pasamos, vamos, 2 minutos pasados, perdón. Lo sé. No existe la cláusula en inglés sin sujeto. Es tan potente esa idea que por eso ocupamos it. Mira, piénsalo en español. Está lloviendo. Está soleado. En inglés, ¿puedo hacer eso? No. ¿Qué necesito? Un sujeto falso. Por eso le ponen it. It is raining. It is sunny. ¿Cachai? Es así de potente la necesidad del sujeto. La única parte donde no habrá sujetos son en los imperativos, como jump, run, commands, ¿cachai? Eso.
claro.
Entonces, en las WH, en las relative clauses, que son estas frases, estas cláusulas que le pongo después adentro de una noun phrase para explicar en mayor grado quién es el head, puedo ocupar ese who on that. ¿Sí?
Ujú.
Si tiene problemas como armarla, revisa estos ejercicios de internet.
Voy a-
Sí.
Gracias,
Sí.
profe.
Dale los ejercicios de internet. Cuando éramos más viejos, muchos años en el pasado, ocupábamos un libro. Ubican el English Grammar in Use. El Grammar in Use. ¿Lo ubican?
No, no, profe.
Sí,
En
sí.
el año 4, pues eso, estamos hablando de la prehistoria del inglés también. Perdón, son más viejos. No lo tengo. Hay uno que se llama Grammar
Sí,
in
creo que
Use.
sí, el profesor de escrito nos lo subió.
Cabro, yo cuando partí estudiando inglés, yo vengo de un colegio técnico de quinta
Sí,
normal, yo no tuve inglés y yo no sabía inglés
profe,
y eso.
sí, yo los tengo esos, porque el
Sí,
profe
pues,
de escrito los dio, sí. son-
sí, pues, yo con esto me pulí, po, ¿cachai? No los compren, se pueden descargar. ¿Cachai? Entonces, con esto me pulí. Pero ¿qué es un grammar in use? En verdad, es esto mismo, pero en un papel. Porque no teníamos internet. Entiéndanos también, somos más viejos. ¿Ya? Denle una vueltecita. Relative clauses. Piénselo, las relative clauses están adentro de las noun phrases. Eso. Estamos pasados en 4 minutos. Chiquillos, stop share. Y